Let me tell you about a terrible day in Jacksonville's history. August 27th, 1960, known as Axe Handle Saturday. The story really shows you what civil rights protesters were up against back then. See, throughout that summer, young members of Jacksonville's NAACP Youth Council had been organizing peaceful sit-ins at segregated lunch counters downtown. They were simply asking for what everyone else had, the right to eat at the same restaurants as white people, but some white residents weren't having it. That Saturday morning, things took a horrific turn. About 200 white men, including Klan members, gathered in what was then called Hemming Park. It's James Weldon Johnson Park now. They came armed with baseball bats and axe handles. When the protesters arrived, these men unleashed their violence, beating any black person they could find, whether they were protesting or just happened to be walking by. You want to know the really infuriating part? The police just stood there watching. They claimed they were waiting for backup. It wasn't until a local black street gang called the Boomerangs showed up to protect their community that the cops suddenly sprang into action. They started arresting the black folks defending themselves, not the white attackers. Many victims had to run to nearby churches just to find safety. When it was all over, 62 people were arrested, 48 black people, and only 14 white people. Think about that math for a minute. The very people who started the violence largely got away with it, while those defending themselves ended up in jail. The aftermath of Axe Handle Saturday really changed Jacksonville. You know how sometimes terrible events can spark important changes. That's what happened here. Local activists and community leaders looked at what happened that day and said, enough is enough. They organized boycotts and kept up the protests, refusing to back down until businesses started desegregating. The violence in Jacksonville also caught national attention. It showed people across the country just how brutal the resistance to civil rights could be in the South. Even after the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964, everyone knew there was still a long road ahead. There's this incredible story about Nat Glover that really brings home what happened that day. He was just 17 coming out from his dishwashing job at Lawrence Cafeteria when the mob surrounded him. He ran to a white police officer for help, and the officer basically told him, get out of here or you might die. Can you imagine? But here's the amazing part. Glover went on to become Jacksonville's first black sheriff and later the president of Edward Waters College. He says that terrifying day actually helped shape him into a stronger leader. Years later, one of the former rioters even came to him asking for forgiveness. These days, Jacksonville works to keep the memory of Axe Handle Saturday alive. There's this powerful mural on the East Side Brotherhood Club building that shows scenes from that day, including one of Charlie Griffin, who was beaten just for being out shopping. And you know, Hemming Park, where all this happened, it's now called James Weldon Johnson Park, and it's become this symbol of how far we've come and how far we still need to go. The whole thing really shows you something important about human nature. How hate and fear can drive people to do terrible things, but also how resilience and courage can help overcome that hatred. We're still dealing with some of these same issues today, just in different forms. That's why remembering Axe Handle Saturday isn't just about looking back. It's about understanding what we need to do moving forward.